Let's delve into one of the most powerful and pervasive biases in human decision-making, loss aversion. This concept, a cornerstone of behavioral economics, helps explain why we often make choices that seem irrational from a purely logical standpoint. What is loss aversion? In simpler terms, the pain of losing something feels much worse than the pleasure of gaining something of the same value. At its core, loss aversion describes our psychological tendency to prefer avoiding losses over acquiring equivalent gains. Imagine this. Scenario 1. You find $100. How do you feel? Pretty good, right? A nice little bonus. 5. This asymmetry in our emotional response profoundly influences our choices. Scenario 2. You have $100 and you lose it. How do you feel? Probably quite a bit worse than the joy of finding it. That feeling of disappointment or frustration often outweighs the positive emotion of an equal gain. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, pioneers in this field, famously suggested that the pain of a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Why does loss aversion happen? The psychology behind it. 1. Evolutionary roots. This theory posits that we evaluate outcomes not in absolute terms, but relative to a reference point, usually our current state or status quo. If you own a coffee mug, you will likely demand a higher price to sell it than what you'd be willing to pay to buy the same mug if you did and already own it. This is because selling it would be perceived as a loss of something you already possess, and that loss feels heavier. So, if we gain something, it's a positive deviation from our reference point. If we lose something, it's a negative deviation. The loss side of this deviation feels steeper and more impactful. From an evolutionary perspective, avoiding threats and losses was critical for survival. Losing food, shelter, or social status could have meant life or death for our ancestors. 11. This is driven by the pain of acknowledging the loss. Our brains may have evolved to be highly sensitive to negative stimuli as a protective mechanism. However, they can become risk-seeking when faced with potential losses, for example, taking a bigger gamble to try and recover a loss. The fear response like that triggered in the amygdala is often more primal and immediate to potential losses. 2. Reference dependence. But because the potential financial and emotional loss of such an event is so painful that we are willing to pay a premium to avoid it, loss aversion is a key component of prospect theory, developed by Kahneman and Tversky. 3. Endowment effect. Closely related to loss aversion is the endowment effect, which states that we tend to value something more once we own it. How does loss aversion impact our decisions? Loss aversion influences decisions across a vast array of domains. Financial decisions. Phrases like limited time offer, only 3 left in stock, or don't miss out on these savings, play on our fear of losing an opportunity. 1. Holding on to losing investments. Investors often hold onto stocks that are performing poorly, hoping they will come back up to break even, rather than selling and realizing the loss. Because changing means giving up what we currently have, a perceived loss of comfort, familiarity, or certainty. 2. Selling winning investments too early. Conversely, they might sell winning stocks too quickly to lock in profits, fearing the potential loss of those gains if the stock falls. 3. Risk aversion. People are generally more risk-averse when faced with potential gains, preferring a smaller, sure gain over a larger, risky one. For example, smoking because the immediate loss of pleasure or comfort is felt more strongly than the long-term gain of better health. 4. Insurance. We pay for insurance not because we expect a car accident or a house fire. Marketing and sales. 1. Fear of missing out. FOMO. Marketers heavily leverage loss aversion by creating a sense of urgency. 2. Free trials. Companies offer free trials because once you possess the service or product for a while, the idea of losing access to it becomes a powerful motivator to subscribe. 3. Guarantees and return policies. These reduce the perceived loss or risk for a consumer, making them more likely to purchase. 4. Emphasizing what you'll lose. Instead of saying get healthier by exercising, A campaign might say, "Don't lose your vitality and energy as you age." Everyday choices. By acknowledging its presence and understanding its mechanisms, we can better navigate the complex world of choices and strive for more balanced and effective outcomes. 1. Sticking with the status quo. We often resist change, even if a new option might be better too. Negotiations. In negotiations, people tend to be more rigid about concessions because giving something up feels like a loss, even if it leads to a mutually beneficial agreement. 3. Habit breaking. It is harder to give up a bad habit. How to mitigate the effects of loss aversion. While loss aversion is deeply ingrained, understanding it can help us make more rational decisions. 1. Reframe situations. Consciously reframe choices to focus on potential gains rather than losses. 2. Focus on net outcomes. Instead of dwelling on a small loss within a larger successful venture, look at the overall positive outcome. 3. Set clear goals and rules for investments. Establish clear rules for when to sell both winners and losers and stick to them, rather than letting emotions dictate decisions. 4. Consider the opportunity cost. What are you losing by sticking to your current situation or avoiding a potentially beneficial risk? 5. Recognize the bias. Simply being aware that your brain is wired this way can help you pause and think more rationally before reacting to a perceived loss. Loss aversion is a potent force that can lead us astray from optimal decisions. Like this video and subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye.